So near misses, yeah, I look at near misses as pretty much picture yourself driving down a country road, you get lost and you see a house off to the side. Let me go and knock on their door. When you step up to the porch, you hear the rack of the shotgun. That's your near miss. That is your near miss right there. Because once you hear that rack of that shotgun, if you take another step forward, we all know the outcome of that.
Welcome to the Canary Report, the podcast where risk leaders, safety professionals, and operational executives come for real-world stories and smarter strategies to keep people safe. I'm your host, Michael Zell. In each episode, I sit down with exceptional leaders who are transforming how risk and safety are managed. Whether you're a leader of a nationwide EH&S program in a high-risk industry, or you champion workplace safety across 200 retail locations, this podcast is for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Canary Report, podcast where risk leaders, safety professionals, and operational executives come for real-world stories and smarter strategies to keep people safe. I'm your host, Michael Zell, and I am the founder and CEO of Yellowbird. Today, we have Reginald Shubert joining us. He is a very seasoned, in a good way, experienced construction and safety leader with over 30 years of experience. He's also very active in his volunteering and other philanthropic endeavors, which I actually want to jump into a little bit today. He believes in transforming culture into a less compliance-focused and more commitment-driven organization, and I love that. And his background covers all sorts of things like multi-site programs. He's reducing injuries and incidents. He's built very high-performing teams. He's been around my industry, the industry that we love for a long time, and I'm honored to have you. And I am going to call you Reggie, as you said that I could during conversation. But Reginald, thank you for being here.
Michael, thank you for the kind words. I'm humbled by your introduction. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So first and foremost, where do we find you today? And where is home for you?
Corporate office is based in Manhattan, New York. And home for me is in Barr, Delaware.
Barr, Delaware. Now, where is Barr, Delaware? I had just asked you this offline. I'm going to ask you online.
Yeah, a lot of people, I get that question often, especially from people that's not from the area. Barr sits probably midway between Wilmington and Dover. Most people know Wilmington as the city of Delaware. And then most people may know Dover because of the racetrack there. So I sit kind of smack dead in the middle between the two.
Well, it's a relatively small state to begin with, so it can't be very far from anywhere that people know in Delaware, I suspect, because I come from California originally, and people are like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be in San Francisco. Can I come visit you in South Orange County? And I'm like, well, that's about a 9-hour drive. And no, you probably can't just pop on down and come visit us for a lunch. Yeah. So I always say that we are a human company and we focus on the human beings around safety. There's plenty of wonderful podcasts around regulations and compliance and rules and all the things, but I like to talk about people. And so I want to start with your personal journey. Are you married, kids, things like that you would like to share with our listeners about what makes your heart beat?
Yeah, I'm married, 23 years. I'm a dad of 4. I'm a girl dad, so I have four beautiful young ladies. 2 are still at home, and everyone's doing well. I have a junior in college and a senior in high school. So I see the light at the end of the tunnel get much brighter. So
I'm with you. I have a junior in college and I have a junior in high school. And likewise, we were right there. We're right at the, maybe not the end of the expensive side, but we definitely are going to have a change in their reliance on us on the daily. So it's an exciting time.
Yep, it's not what you teach them, it's what you teach them to do for themselves. That really counts.
Absolutely. And you're a girl dad. So my daughter who's home is, I have 1 boy and 1 girl, and it was a much different experience. And going through homecomings and all these things and dating and boys, it is a very different experience being a girl dad. It's fantastic. we went golfing yesterday, and she hung out with me on the golf course, and we had a blast. But it is a very different experience being a girl dad. Were your girls into anything athletically or otherwise, socially, that you got to go be a cheering committee?
The younger two. One of the older ones, she was a equestrian. She did that for a while, and then the younger two are the ones that were really, really active. I had a two-time national title holder for dance. I have a three-time state champion for track out of the younger two. So they've been very, very active in their extracurricular activities. Yeah.
My daughter is a dancer as well, and so you've been down to the Florida and all the competitions and all the I know exactly the life that you lived there, and she did it in high school as well. I
Yes.
imagine. Yes. So same with mine. It becomes a big job. It becomes equal to any sport I've ever been involved in. And I didn't realize that when she was 3 years old with her tutu, that it was going to end up looking like that.
Yeah. Once you enter that competition world of dance, it completely changes things. So
Yeah, you're going to appreciate this, and then we'll get on to some business, or at least some of the industry stuff. The most expensive sentence I've said in my entire life was, we were at a competition in Las Vegas, and she was maybe 10 years old, and she was only part of one team, one club. And I'm like, if we're going to come all the way here, we got to do more than just this 3-minute deal. Like, can we sign her up for some more? That was the most expensive statement on earth. You multiplied everything by 3. The private lessons, the flips, the turns, the outfits, the travel. It was
the additional classes. Yeah. Similar to my daughter, she probably competes almost at every genre of dance. So
yes.
She does the group dances, she does the solo, she does the lyrical theater, she does the jazz, she does the you name it, she does it.
That's awesome, though. That's good for her, and good for her. It's the confidence that gives young ladies and men the ability to work with a team and individuals. There's so many life lessons that are taken from that, and good for you for building a young lady that is going to benefit from all of this stuff. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your journey that got you here on a business side. So right now you are the director of safety for, I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly. Is it Barr Barr? Okay. So Barr Barr Inc. And tell us a little bit about Barr Barr, and then I'd love to go through kind of the longer term journey of what got you here.
All right. So Barr Barr is a construction manager at risk. We span from New England to Tampa, so pretty much most of the East Coast. We skip a couple places in between. We're a 100% employee-owned company. The company is great. We primarily build universities, higher education, and hospitals, medical side. So we're heavy in both of those sectors. Right now, we probably have about 150 to 160 on our payroll at any given time. So not a large company, but a nice size. And we like to boast. We've been in business since 1927. And you may not know what we built. You may not know our name, but you will know what we built. So once we start running down the resume.
Hospitals and universities, I'll tell you what, I mean, you don't get more institutionalized and part of a culture, a community than that. The educational institutions and the health institutions are the foundations of our country. So yeah, it's that's amazing. And I always find on this podcast, I interview people, amazing human beings that work for awesome companies that I've never heard of. It tells you how name brands are not necessarily really what makes for our economy. So prior to that, why don't we go back to you started as a journeyman, correct?
Yes, I started my construction career as a union ironworker. Did my 4-year apprenticeship, kind of grew through the ranks. And then somewhere along the way, safety was introduced to me as a career. And the first time it was introduced to me, I said no. And then the second time, I said, I'll think about it. And then the third time is three times the charm. It was really something I had started to get interested in, and I seen the value behind becoming a safety person.
You were local 401. So where were you were doing bridge and structural and things like that? So where were you working at the time? Back during, I mean, it was a long duration. I know you did it for 27 years. So, but during that journey, where were you physically? Where was home, and what were you building then?
So local 401, Ironworkers Local 401 is based in Philadelphia. It's their structural side. So Philadelphia is a split union, split locals. So they have one for structural, and then they have a separate one for reinforcement steel. So I worked on several of the buildings in Philadelphia area. That's where I really honed my hat. I did mostly garages. And ironically, my very last job as an ironworker was at a hospital.
Really? Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So you got the full circle of going down that path, and then you end up where you are in a different role now. So that's fascinating. How does the union, and I actually don't know this question, I'm going off script for a moment, but being part, you're a foreman, you're a journeyman, you're part of the union. On the safety side of things, how involved does the union get in comparison to the the contractors, the general contractors, and the owners and so forth? How does that work on the union side? I've never actually talked to anybody who had as deep of experience as you.
So during your apprenticeship, safety. The 4 years of your apprenticeship, they pound it in your head. They teach it to you. You come out generally with an OSHA 30-hour outreach card, among a lot of other training. So I think on the union side, from my experience, that the training is a much higher level of training because it's pounded in your head for 4 years or 5 years, depending on how long the apprenticeship program is. And then even with the Ironworkers International, they even go further. They have a safety directors program where they teach. They have a course that they actually bring people out, or you have to be recommended for it, and you can go through the safety directors course, and it prepares you to become a safety director for a steel erecting company, which I unfortunately wasn't available when I came through, but it is available now.
Interesting. Yeah, that might be an interesting group for us to talk to, actually, because we do nationwide. We're doing so many highly technical trainings, and it might be an efficient way of expanding that program rather than having to be flown out to actually have localized training programs. Doesn't matter. We're not here nor there. I just, when you said that, I'm like, interesting. I never even thought of that. So as you, so you went through this journey. I love my happiest place is talking to safety professionals that actually carried a torch, swung a hammer, were field operations first. I think that there's nothing you can teach better than somebody who has experience in life and understands what it actually means to put a program together, because they know how unreasonable some of these requests can be when you're actually trying to do your job, and how we as safety leaders have to adapt to the necessity of the business. You can't can't wrap everybody in bubble wrap and expect them to be a great driver. It just doesn't work that way, So when you became a safety leader, what were some of the things that brought you to this? You said you were brought 3 times. Finally, the third time, you took it seriously and you leaned in. So what happened there from when that began? What was your calling there?
I've always had a altruistic personality, right? So that was one reason why I wanted to get into safety and thought it would be a good fit. And when it was first offered to me, I was a walking steward or foreman. I can't really remember which capacity, but the safety director for the general contractor approached me. She says, "Hey, been on this job for quite a while, a couple of years now. Uh, really love the way you handle the guys in the field, and you can come into the office and you know how to talk to the owners, the clients, et cetera, and then go back into the field and completely switch your lingo." She was like, "You do it really well. So I think you have great personality, and I think you'd be great for safety." If you know anything about ironworkers, it's generally a little high strung and confident, and I don't want to say the
Yeah.
word cocky, but you know, you kind
It's all
of
right.
walk that line between confidence and cocky, and that was me at the time. And I says, "Hey, no, don't want to be that guy. I'm not going to be the guy going around telling people put the glasses on. It's just not my idea. Something I want to do."
Okay.
And then maybe fast forward 2 to 3 months later, safety director for the company I worked for kind of also planted the same seed, almost in the same verbiage. And then I told her, "Yeah, maybe I think about it." Donna's mentioned it as well earlier. So I said, "Okay, maybe they have something here. Maybe they see something that I don't see." And then safety director called me in one of the coldest days of the winter. "Come on down to the trailer, pick up the checks." So I went down to get the checks, and she had coffee all laid out for me, waiting for me, and conversation. She said, "Sit down. It's nice and warm in here, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, you're right. It's pretty nice." She was like, "Take a load off." So sat there with her for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then um, at the time, it was a foreman that came in. He had just turned 50, but he pretty much walked with a hunch because his body was aching and hurting. And what she said to me, she says, "You want to look like him when you turn 50?" She says, "Or you want to be able to play with your kids and your grandkids?" And I was like, "Yeah, you got a point." She's like, "Come on over to the dark side." And then pretty much that's how that was my introduction to safety. That was the nail in the coffin of my ironworker career that day.
Well, you know what? I think they obviously saw in you what a lot of people see in you. I am so impressed. You said that you have a calling for philanthropy and giving back and lead and mentoring. You generously shared your volunteer CV or your resume. And I have to tell you, you are a man who walks the walk, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And I find that a lot of people in the safety world that are excellent at what they do that. And so I'm going to once again embarrass you just a little bit because I really want our listeners to know. And then I promise you, I will stop embarrassing you and start asking you some, hard hitting questions. Probably not, but you are a track and field coach and have been, first in state. The Ebony Tie Affair, which is a youth symposium. I'm excited to hear more about that. You have a community volunteerism. You've gone through all sorts of safety scholarships and foundations where you're the chair or the co-founder. I mean, you even are a safety executives New York board member. I mean, you really have done such a remarkable job um, going above and beyond. And, it's funny because I said this to somebody earlier today. I actually ask these questions. We, as Yellowbird, ask these questions when we onboard our professionals um, about their military experience at times, about their service, about things that you wouldn't necessarily think because it tells you a lot about a human being. If they are active in their church, if they go to food banks, if they, in your case, you are actually an emergency medical technician you're an EMT. I mean, these are the things that make for a human being far beyond the fact that you happen to have a BCSP certification or two, and you happen to belong to all the associations. This is the stuff. So from all your volunteering, tell me, I really want to hear a lot about this, the Ebony Tie Affair, the youth symposium. Can you give me a little bit of background? I think it's from the little I researched. I'm fascinated. So I want to hear more.
Well, it's not a lot out there when you research it, although it has been in existence for 10 plus years. It's not a lot out there. So first, I have to give you some background on Ebony Tie Affair, which is the supporting organization. So the Ebony Tie Affair was started some years ago by a group of Black judges and lawyers who felt that they couldn't celebrate their professional successes within the workplace because of their skin color. So they started a luncheon, maybe 5 of them, and then that grew to the point where it became a dinner. And that dinner now grew to an annual event held in Delaware. It's roughly 400 to 500 professional Black men networking and just celebrating success. It is a Black tie affair, since the name Ebony Tie Affair. And then they started a youth symposium because you can't celebrate your success without giving back to the youth. And I've been involved with the youth symposium now for 4 years. I'm the vice chair. And that also is an annual event that we're trying to change into a monthly or bi-monthly mentoring. So with that annual event, we bring roughly around 60 to 100 Black young males out, and we give them things like mental health breakout sessions, financial literacy breakout sessions, conflict resolution, how to present yourself to a young lady, a plethora of different things, college careers, college fairs. And they are required to come in business attire, so they have to wear a suit, tie. But our only true requirement is they have to wear sneakers, right? So we thought you put teenagers in a suit, they're already uncomfortable, but we want you to be able to enjoy yourself and participate properly with having some comfort. So we put them in sneakers, and it also gives us a way to connect with them because we'll try to go out and buy sneakers that they would like, and we wear them to the symposium. So
it's fantastic. And you've been doing this for 10 years?
I haven't been involved for 10 years. I've been involved, I think this is my 5th year going this year.
Awesome. Awesome.
And we always have a community give back piece. So we give back to the community some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. We normally do a homeless drive for either homeless men in the state of Delaware. This year, we're doing a hygiene drive for women of battered women shelters. So we always try to make sure these young men get back to the community and know how important that is.
It's fantastic. I can't tell you how much that means to not just me and our listeners, but when you are able to touch somebody who's young enough to admire a successful Black man like yourself and be a mentor and able to show a path, that is a fantastic deal. And there's often, and you and I talked about this, how I was born with a disability, and I do try to volunteer with families and kids, but I have never experienced trauma. I was born this way. And so for me, it's important that I don't pretend I know what it's like to have gone through something. To be born with something is a very different play. And I think being born with the pigment of your skin and being as accomplished as you are and having these kids be able to speak with you and see that is a wonderful thing. So thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate it. So on the safety side, I want to talk to you about some of the things in the last 10 years that you've been proud of, that you have seen working in the high stakes world of, your foundations are in, obviously building ironwork and skyscrapers, and, these are very dangerous jobs. So what have you seen that's been working that have helped reduce incidents and accidents, deaths, and so forth?
Coming from a high, I wouldn't say high profile, but high exposure trade as ironworking. You see a lot of stuff, but you're exposed to a lot more. And one of the things that I've seen truly, truly work in the past 10 years is psychological safety, right? If you truly, truly make it to the point where everyone has a voice, everyone feels heard. And even now in our industry, we're all combating. We know all the statistics with the construction suicide rates, and I think if we truly get back to the psychological safety where everybody has a voice, we now make action. Right? We know all about the awareness, but now it's action time. How do we fix that? And I think it's through psychological safety. So you take an industry like ours, where for the most part, most people start out as with the stigmatism. Hey, Johnny, listen, you're not college material. Go find a trade. All right. But what people fail to realize is most trades have a 4 to 5 year apprenticeship program. So it's just as this if this kid was going to college for 4 years or 5 years, they come out. The difference is most people, when they go to college or university, they come out with some debt. The kid that enters the trade, this kid is probably making six figures when he graduates his apprenticeship, and he's making money along the way. So I think, not to take anything away from either side, I think you just need to learn to give the construction side a little more respect
I
when
agree
it
with you.
comes to the education, because these trade people are not educated. They're very well educated within their trading field.
Well, it's interesting as a father of a junior in college. He is passionate about architecture, but before that, he was passionate about photography and music, and he's always had this artistic bend. And he's gone to wonderful schools, and we're very, very fortunate that we could send him to these great, elementary and high school and so forth. But at the end of the day, his acumen was towards a trade or a skill, a vocation that you have to go to college for. But I'll tell you, I think it is the biggest disservice that we give our kids these days, trying to force them into going to universities and colleges when that is not for everybody. And in fact, we need the trades that you're talking about. We need, as society, everybody talks about AI, and believe me, I am very deep in AI and what I do, deeper than most people could even imagine. But at the end of the day, when there's a water leak at my home and I have to pick up a phone or call somebody and say help, I am not calling AI. I am calling a human being that's going to get there, and they're going to be skilled, and they're going to communicate well, and they're going to be articulate, and they're going to do their job, and they're going to save our bacon, because otherwise I'm going to have a major issue.
Yes.
And I don't think people respect that phone call enough. But we've all made it. We've all been there. I use the example of when my father-in-law passed away. He passed away way too young, and we're having all these people over, and our oven died. Our oven just died, and
Wow.
And I had all these people coming over. We had all these casseroles. It was one of these things, and I called a friend of mine, and I said, "Hey, man, I know you own an appliance parts company. I think somebody told me you did. I didn't even really know." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll send one of my people out. We'll take care of it for you, Mike." That was a moment of generosity that I will never forget. He wouldn't charge me for it.
I'm sorry. First, my condolences to you and your family, the loss of your father-in-law, and that's never an easy time. And then you throw a problem at it, right? So, but that's just God's way of letting you know that everything's covered, right? It was fixed probably within a matter of an hour, and no one charged you for it. How could anyone in their right mind charge you for that, especially knowing what you were going through? So that was good.
Yeah, he was a very kind man. It's funny. My wife has I don't know what it's called. It's a fable where there's a person stranded inside of a boat, and you're praying for God to help them find land, and then one ship comes by. He says, no, I'm waiting for God to take care of me. And then like 3 days later, another ship comes by, and then he ends up passing away, and he goes up to St. Peter and he goes, "Why didn't you send somebody?" He goes, "I sent you 3 boats. you just didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I've
And
heard
it's
that.
funny. And it's funny because your story, your reluctant safety professional story, actually
Yeah.
kind of goes into that. So you decided to listen to the third calling, and maybe that's how you ended up being.
Yeah, I'm
As a
glad you put it that way. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. So I want to, and we're going to wrap up here in a moment, but I want to ask you from a practical perspective. As you're looking at you're running multiple sites, multiple locations, all these various hazards and risk and so forth. How are you managing your current training and supervision and on-site teams? Is it like, what do you do on your stuff to just make sure everybody has the right, that you have coverage? Is it all staff internal?
It is all our staff internal. Sometimes we use third parties when we necessarily have to. Our superintendents across the country are very, very sharp. We require all of our supers to have a 30-hour that's updated every 5 years. We require every person that steps onto our job sites to have an OSHA 10-hour card. We require all subcontractor field supervisory personnel to have the OSHA card within the past 5 years as well. So we have the general awareness portion of it packed. And then we also hold a quarterly superintendent's meeting where they all get a training short, whether it be a half an hour or an hour. Every quarter, we're pumping something into their head. And of course, the safety folks and our executive leadership are actually out there making sure that they're doing the right thing. So we have a motto of see something, say something, but also do something, right? A lot of people stop at that say something, right? See something, say something, do something. And we have that. So even our project accountants, if they walk on a job site and they see something and they don't think it's right, they immediately are required to go in and tell someone. And so they seen something, they said something, and they actually did something about it. So
I think the action words and the action deeds are the most important pieces of safety. If you really look at the people who make an impact, there's a lot of talk about recordables and there's a lot of talk about numbers, but the reality is that I talk a lot on this podcast about near misses and events that are learning lessons that we should be celebrating. And no, nobody wants to be the representation of a near miss. But if you make it into a rock star position where you're like, you know what, I want to talk about this near miss. I didn't realize that I was about to have a really bad day. And somebody either made me aware of it or I made myself aware of it. But here's the situation. I think it is the most valuable thing you can do in safety is really highlight and focus on the oh my goodness moments where we've all had them. We've all been on a ladder and had to go wobble just a little bit. And you're like, that moment, you don't run downstairs and tell your wife, oh, I almost fell off a ladder and died. You just kind of take it all in. But you should, if you're at work, tell the other guy who's about to go up a ladder, hey, man, I just had a near miss. Like I just had a moment that I wasn't following the protocol. And, that's an important piece of this equation.
So near misses, yeah, I look at near misses as pretty much picture yourself driving down a country road, you get lost and you see a house off to the side. Let me go and knock on their door, right? When you step up to the porch, you hear the rack of the shotgun, right? That's your near miss. That is your near miss right there. Because once you hear that rack of that shotgun, if you take another step forward, we all know the outcome of that. All right. So when we ignore these so-called near misses or incidents that didn't happen, we lead ourselves down a road to have an incident. So we should talk about them.
Yes, we should. Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the people and I'm very blessed that I've done so many of these discussions with such leading and very wise people. One of the gentlemen that I was speaking with, and I really cannot recall who it was. I'm not being, just my age is showing. But he talked about how the old timers, used to think of it as a badge of honor, and how he's really kind of honed in would you want your kid to do that? Would you want your son or daughter or grandson to be doing that? I've done it 100 times. I've never been electrocuted. I don't need to walk out, tag out. And it's like, really? So your grandson goes into the trades and decides to become an electrician. You going to tell him it's okay not to shut off power before working with high voltage?
No, that's a good training point, right? That's a good training point. So for me, I always try to tie safety back to home, right? Some way, shape, form, or fashion. Someone there wants you to go, even though you may not want to go. Someone there wants you to come home. So, so for example, you said you have your daughter's junior in high school, right? So let's fast forward this conversation 25 years from now. 20 years from now, she's 37, maybe a little younger, and she's getting married. All right, she's walking down. You're walking her down the aisle. Tell me what she looks like to you at that moment.
I mean, that's such a great. Well, I wouldn't tell you that because I will start crying on my own podcast, but I'll tell you that I'm excited about it and I can picture it in my head, and I look forward to that moment.
Tomorrow you decide to go to work and you don't wear your safety glasses and something happens to your vision. And now picture that same moment, but now your wife has to explain to you what she looks like as you walk her down the aisle, right? It's a little different now, right? In how you approach it. So if we tie it in the home and we remember why we are doing this, we remember why we need to be safe.
That's an amazing tool. Thank you for that. And I have not heard that used as an example. Although I'll tell you, being that you work in ironworking or did at one point, and welding, and we all know that the light from a welder, if you do not have your eyes covered, would leave you exactly like that. That's a good example of something that is practical, because just turning your head in welding is not the solution.
It is not. It is not.
I'm a gearhead. I watch a ton of automobile shows, like guys working on, restoring vehicles and getting motors going and working on axles. And every time I see them do that, I'm like, no, don't do that.
But I never had opportunity to invoke the Fifth Amendment, but I'm going to invoke it today.
There you go. And I appreciate that. No worries. Well, Reggie, thank you, man. This was a delight. I think our listeners are going to love it. I hope that we can help you take some of the burden off of your superintendents, and help out in the areas that maybe are specialized or generalized safety services at Yellowbird. But either way, you are doing wonderful work, and for the community as well as for your company. So thank you so much for being with us.
Michael, I appreciate your time and opportunity. Thanks again.
That's it for today's episode of the Canary Report. If this conversation helped you reframe how you think about risk and safety, please do me a favor. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. We're building a new category of safety and risk leadership, one that's faster and smarter. Leaders who aren't just empowered by tech, but whose wisdom is accelerated by it. To learn more about how Yellowbird's cutting-edge platform is empowering leaders to solve workplace safety and risk challenges faster, smarter, and at scale, visit goyellowbird.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Yellowbird pages to stay up to date. Until next time, lead with clarity, know first, and act fast.